Hello, students. Today we will be looking into Unit 5 of Logistics in International Trade. And in this session, we will be looking at predominantly how logistics managers have to face a different situation when it comes to international markets, what are the problems that they may encounter, and how it is advisable for them to gear up for avoiding any sort of problems and ensure that there is smooth shipment from a port of origin and till the port of destination. This is followed by, we will look at different modes of shipment, and also in an international market, international trading, when the goods reach the destination, what are the different point of entries in particularly India as a focal point. So, the topic for the today's session are international shipment and types. However, the next part of the session will be international shipment including storage facilities like cold chain infrastructure. So, today's session will commence with shipment and types. So, we have to first understand what is international logistics. We all know the definition of logistics. We have studied what is e-logistics. We have studied what is e-commerce. And now we are looking at a new domain, international logistics, which is an extension of what we understand of logistics. International logistics is design and managing a system that is controlling the flow of materials into, through or out of the international corporation. So, the flow of materials that comes to a company means here the company imports through, well, an international corporation, when I use the word through, here the focal point will be, are they a trading firm or are they an indenting firm, in the sense, do they have a warehouse where they collect the goods and then reship it? Through and out of the international corporation. So, out of the international corporation here is obviously exports. So, this is managing and designing the system of controlling the flow of materials. So, with this, we will understand ahead what are the importance of international logistics. Without logistics and without transportation, international trade won't be possible. Transportation and logistics plays a major role. It can be divided into two parts. We always know there's an international logistics, there's a domestic logistics. But international logistics depends also on domestic logistics, and domestic logistics depends on international logistics. So, once the goods reaches the destination, a different country, then each time there must be facilities available so that goods are removed from the vessel in which it has arrived, loaded in some other vessel and taken to the next nearest destination. From there, it may have to be further transported to another destination till the goods reaches the hands of the customer. For all this, you require an adequate infrastructure facility at a domestic level. So, international logistics depends on domestic logistics too, because when the customer imports the goods, he is looking for the goods to reach his factory regardless of when the goods reaches the port of his country. He is more interested in to get the goods inside his factory sooner. So the logistics part, that is international logistics, does not end only at getting the goods to the port of a country. It can be an airport, it can be a seaport. But it also includes, once the goods arrive, how to take the goods from the port to the destination of the customer. So, In the same way, domestic logistics depends on international logistics. Well, if the international logistics is poor, then they will have a lot of waiting time at a domestic level. Maybe trucks, trains, goods trains, lorries will have to wait for longer days at a particular location. We will study about those locations also. Wait for the arrival of the goods, and there will be a lot of congestion. There will be delay in the delivery of the goods. So they both go hand in hand. And in the entire system, logistics, transportation, which is a part of logistics, itself cannot be efficient as a whole, because transportation being a set of a logistics, if logistics is efficient, transportation has to be also efficient, and vice versa. When transportation facilities and infrastructure availability is very efficient and effective, the entire logistics system, including storage like a warehouse, including inspection at the custom level, has to be very effective and very efficient. Overall, this facilitates what we call as an international trade. So that's the importance of international logistics. We'll go to the next point. They are essential for the growth and development of the local economy. Without trade, there won't be availability of material. As we saw, every country is not endowed with a factor. Every country has got paucity of some important commodity, minerals, maybe raw material, and they have to depend on some other country for that supply. If such a material is not available, then production of the finished goods cannot be possible, or the quality produced will be very, very poor, and the sale will be very difficult for the company. So, when we get the quality and the quantity unrestricted supply of the goods that is required, then there will be more and more people who want to strive or opt for production of goods which or where availability of raw material is abundant, and this will help develop the local economy. It can be a state, because imports, because we had Mumbai port, Nhava Sheva port, the entire state prospered because of the trading facility. It is right from before pre-independence times. In the same way, the quantity and quality of logistics determine the trading volumes. First is both are equally dependent on each other. One, quality depends on quantity, quantity depends on quality, in order to say that logistics trading volumes will increase. If the quality of logistics is poor, there is warehouse available in abundance, too many warehouses, very close to the port, but they are full of rodents. There is no proper anti-termite protection given to that place. Whenever there is rains, the rainwater seeps in the warehouse and spoils the goods stored inside the warehouse. There is no security in and around the warehouse. There are a lot of thefts, and workers don't want to work beyond certain hours inside the warehouse. There is no communication facility or systems inside the warehouse. There is no data of internet available inside the warehouse. So communication with the offices from the warehouse will be very, very slow and very poor. So that determines the quality. That means abundance of anything does not determine the effectiveness of it. So quality is important. Now let's go for only quality, but not the quantity. Well, we have state-of-the-art warehouse, but the demand is for 25 warehouse. This is what is happening typically in India today. We have a good cold storage warehouse. We will be studying it very shortly. However, cold storage warehouses are not sufficient for us. That means the quantity is very less. That means more and more cold storage facilities are required. So in the same way, both quality and efficiency in logistics services serve as a major driver for customer satisfaction. A satisfied customer always wants to look for the right quality, right price, right quantity to reach him at the right time and the right place. That's what a customer looks for. When you want some product, today you will go out to the nearby store where you know such a product is sold. Well, you have only 2 or 3 varieties there. So you look for that product. You may not get the appropriate technical specification that you're looking for. So what do? You return home, open your computer and log on to your net and browse in one of the e-commerce site. So you get basically that technical specification you're looking for, or you're at least able to decide permutation and combination very close to what you wanted. But that is happening on a net today. So it is not just the quality of the product available in the shop and on e-commerce was the same, but the efficiency in the services. So as soon as you go for the order, you book it, the company will immediately inform you through a message at what date and what time, at what place, at what price you will receive the product. And that is what creates a satisfied customer, isn't it? And what happens? Next time you want to buy any product, you will stop going out to look for it. You will directly look at the available facility on your computer. So, similar, if logistics is managed properly, there will be increase in the overall economic growth. Having said from point number 1 to 4, now we know that economic growth depends so much on the logistics management. So, you all know what is logistics now. As soon as I use the word logistics, your focus should be directly towards the transportation, warehousing, payment, these different arenas. Now, from a customer point of view. But if it is mismanaged or, well, not adequately managed, the nation as a whole is affected. So, we will see what are the possibilities of a mismanaged logistics. Well, poor international logistics emerge for various reasons. Now, sometimes the country that is shipping the goods may be having a very effective logistics, but the country that receives the goods, that is importing, may have a very poor logistics system, or vice versa. Country that is receiving the logistics, the goods, has got a very efficient logistics system, whereas the company that is selling it from a country, they have a very poor logistics. So, logistics efficiency and effectiveness goes down not just because it is poor in one country. It is a relation of logistics efficiency and effectiveness in both the countries, exporting as well as importing. So there is poor logistics systems normally comes from limited coordination among countries on border procedures. Well, here we have to look at the role played by governments when they take their team led by the government officials, industrialists, along with the finance or commerce portfolio ministers to visit another country. What are the points of discussion that they have? What are the points raised by other countries' officials? So, if these engagement between two countries' governments happen regularly, then coordination will improve and each country will understand from the other country's perspective what are the deficiencies, what are the problems the foreign businesses are facing to sell the goods, to export the goods to us, or to buy goods from our country. Both the case. Why are they importing from our country? Most of the time, businesses always feel that their quality is not up to the mark. But an importer in a foreign country always complains that we have no problem with your quality, but your goods never reaches to us on time. And we have to withhold the production for the want of raw material whenever we import from a country, a particular country. So that can be one of the reasons. So this can be identified through proper engagement and dialogues. And one of the most important is the border procedures. Well, this is very crucial because there are several countries in the world which are bordering different countries. That means these are known as landlocked countries where the only way to reach from one country to the other is either a rail network or a road line. Both we call as land transportation. There is no need for ships there. There is no seaports there because there may be a couple of smaller ships that is going through the rivers. But however, there is no major seaport activities happening in these countries. At that point of time, movement of goods, movement of people from one country to the other must be very easy and simplified. So, coordination among these countries are very essential. Next problem occurs in poor logistics is when the customs clearance are very, very tardy, very slow, mired with lot of suspicion, controversies, confusion between the government officials who are the custom officials versus that of the business firms in their own country. Inefficient customs clearance procedures are one of the indicators of a very, very poor logistics system. In the same way, if an exporter wants to export the goods to a foreign country, then custom clearance is required in his own country. So again, if the custom clearance takes a lot of time, the procedures requires immense number of documentation, proof, going back and forth with the same approvals, etc., then the entire logistics system gets affected. So here once again, the government has to step in to ease out the procedure, simplify the procedure, make it very transparent so that, and make it very convenient for the importers or the exporters so that much of the activity is happening between the customs and the business firms, the interactions can be done online, and this procedures will save a lot of time, and because of this there will be faster clearance. If the documents are good, then the custom need not withhold or need not spend a lot of time, and it will be also easy for the customs to inspect the goods and give clearance. The next part is a very fragmented and poor quality transportation infrastructure. When we say fragmented, we mean that innumerable companies of very small capacity or small size. How about having one company having different size of trucks, traveling different distances? Or how about having 10 companies, each having not more than 2 or 3 fleet in their possession? This is known as fragmented. Well, normally any industry, when it has to grow or when it is at the very nascent stage, it always remains fragmented because the size of the company will be small and newcomers who come to this industry with the same business proposition or value proposition will also be small in capacity. When the demand increases over a period of time, then much of these companies, maybe because of selling their company away and a big company buying these small companies, they become big in size. This is the process of industry evolution, of course. But however, if the demand part of it does not trigger, then most of the companies remain very small. And small companies cannot be effective and efficiently run because their fixed costs are very difficult to manage. When the company grows large in size, the fixed costs get spread across multiple activities and and consolidated industry may be more preferable than a fragmented one. Please look into it, consolidated relative to fragmented. Okay. So, poor quality of transportation infrastructure. When I say poor quality of transportation infrastructure, I am not just talking about the quality or the model of the trucks or the trailers. I am not talking about the efficiency of material handling equipment at the port. I am talking about the educated level of workforce in this sector. Next part. I am talking about the quality of the roads and the highways in a country. I am talking about the quality of the rail network. Where farthest a train can reach, the goods train. Where farthest an aircraft can reach, which is a cargo airlines. How interior can a shipping firm enter a country? We'll talk about that very soon. What is the meaning of a ship entering inside a country? So, this is typically two reasons why poor logistics emerge. One is fragmentation and second is poor quality transportation. Next, because of these reasons, the unit cost always is very high. And when these small businesses know that the buyers always depend on them, then there is a tendency to increase the price of the services. So, it becomes very costly for the buyers to use the transportation or any other services like a warehouse. So, next is an infrequent transportation availability. When the frequency of the transportation is not adequate, then the entire flow of the goods slows down. Delays in tracking and tracing consignment. Well, we all know today, the best example we can give is when you book the goods through e-commerce, you can virtually track every step of that parcel that you have ordered from the store, from the warehouse till your home. This is known as effective tracking and tracing the consignments. Traceability is also equally important. When ships go to high seas, they're transiting various oceans, the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Traceability becomes very important. So, when these are very poor, effective technology is not enabled for tracing or tracking, then the emerges what is poor logistics. Delay in terminal handling and clearance of the goods. Once again, we talk about custom clearance here and terminal handling. Terminal handling normally is at the port of sea shipment when the goods arrive. Various procedures right from lifting the goods from the sea ship and bringing it to a location where it is easy for the customs to inspect. All require terminal handling equipments and adequate labor force, learned and knowledgeable labor force for this. Absence of cold storage facility at point of entry. Yes, millions and dollars of goods are transiting the world ports today, and many of them are perishable, like fish, meat, and milk or dairy products, vegetables, fruits. These are also imported into many countries, and as soon as they arrive, please understand, these food products or perishable goods as a whole need to travel through high seas where temperatures go way beyond normal human being can even sustain. And the goods, once they reach the port, they need to be immediately removed from the vessel and taken to a place where they can be protected and their freshness retained. So, these are places known as cold storage. We'll be discussing in length towards the end of the session, the next session, what are cold storage meant for. However, the absence of cold storage has been a very, very difficult issue faced by many businesses who are expanding their business, especially in food sectors. Lastly, the inability to certify product quality. Well, when the product enters a country, it has to be inspected. Well, there are products that require thorough inspection and certification. Especially, it is for public consumption. When such products arrive at the port, procedures should be laid down so clearly that the inspectors, the units, the government bodies should be available at the port for very quick inspection. And rules and guidelines should be very clear so that the inspection and the certification happens very quickly and the goods can be taken inside. A lot of ambiguity and confusion will lead to delays in arrival of the goods, and maybe the goods will also be stale. So these are different reasons of poor logistics. Now, in order to improve upon it, World Bank has suggested certain measures for their country's overall logistics performance. Well, we use the World Bank's suggestions because it's at an international level. It is relevant to all the countries, and every country looks into all these parameters in order to develop a better trade relation with other countries and improve their total trading activities. Some dimensions given here from point 1 to 6 consist of the ability to track and trace consignment. This is the first dimension, which will improve the international logistics. The competence and quality of logistics services. How quickly, how efficiently, and how effectively is all the activities linked with each other in logistics is carried out. The ease of arranging competitively priced shipments. This is very essential. Shipments by nature is used in international trade regardless whether it is a sea shipment or an air shipment. We use the word shipment very commonly, including road, including train, goods train. We use the word shipment. So, competitive pricing of shipment should be very important. And competitive pricing happens when volumes of transportation cargo increases. And volumes will increase when there is demand. All these are a cyclical process. Each one is connected to the other. And demand increases because of efficient logistics. Next is the efficiency of customs clearance process. How quickly does the custom inspect the goods and clear the goods to the custom clearing agent, and the custom clearing agent immediately informs the importer, and the importer arranges for the transportation to pick up the goods and get it to his warehouse. The frequency with which shipments reach consignee within scheduled or expected time. We are not just talking about reaching the goods to the consignee on time, one time. No. How regularly does the importer who imports the goods reaches to him on time? And this regularity or the frequency with which it reaches on the scheduled or expected time is an important dimension. The quality of trade and transport related infrastructure. So, most of the point that we have covered here is mentioned from point 1 to 6, which is very essential for improving logistics. Now let's study about managing the international logistics. Before we dwell into this topic, let's draw a comparison about the problems of the managers who work in firms that manages logistics face between international logistics versus that of their domestic markets? Well, doing business in a domestic market becomes very easy for various reasons. One is language is very common. The manager may be speaking the same language which the stakeholders or the buyers or the suppliers or the ancillary service providers in the entire gamut of logistics industry are speaking the same and one language. They understand various codes and thumb rules are working in this industry. Having said that, they have possible comparatives across industry. What do you mean by possible comparatives? Well, we understand how each sector is needing what kind of facilities in order to reach the goods to their cluster of customers. Normally in an industrial market, the buyers are all located or concentrated at one particular area, and same goes for raw material producers. It is very unlikely case in a consumer market where consumers are dispersed in very large geographical areas. So they have a possible comparatives across various industries. Also the logistics providers, they know the different transportation facilities available, frequency with which it is available, the quality of its availability, the pricing, and how much does their commitment really mean. So this leads to a very intimate knowledge about the growing trends. Well, what are the new facilities available? What government has provided? Any subsidies, any loans, any grants, and what are the new stations for receiving the goods are coming up, facilitated by the government, and how we can enhance the quality of service to the buyers. This is all going to intimate knowledge about of the trends in any particular logistics business. So in domestic market, it becomes very, very easy for a manager to pick up this information and process it into an actionable or a knowledge database. Well, this is not going to happen when it comes to international markets. In international market, first and foremost, language is a big barrier. Well, one country speaks Arabic, the other country speaks Malay, another country is speaking Latino, well, there is another country that speaks Hindi, etc. So, language becomes a very big problem in coordination. Well, English is always a common language, and including the institutions who govern the trade between nations have always advocated English to be used in international documents. In fact, the size of the document which is to be A4 is also been a mandate by all the countries that have accepted, because previously many documents used to come in their own shapes and sizes. Some were A4, some were legal size, some were very large, rectangular. So a standardized size of document size was first decided upon. And of course there are countries where even the customs may not understand English because it's not a spoken language in their country, as simple as that. So there are issues related to translating the one language into the other language, and the translation should not change the meaning of it. Please understand, the direct translation may always not be as effective. The intent of the communication may never be understood. So for these reasons, there is always an issue. The third problem that comes is the physical distance. Well, India is a very large country. So when we talk about physical distance, we know to reach from one place to other place, it may take 28 to 48 hours by train for simple commuting. Well, your Google GPS may say that from one point to other point it takes 5 hours by car. But if we want to transport the goods from the same point till your destination, then that typical 8 hours journey will take 16 hours. because a truck or a trailer goes at a very different speed and halts at varying points, at varying places, at different checkposts. So, physical distances, now let us leave our country and look at a foreign country, overseas market. Distances are very, very long, and sometimes by air you may reach from one destination to other in 2.5 to 3 hours. Well, it is very common because air to the nearest destination, but that same distance if you send by ship, it takes around 12 days. We call it voyage time. So from 3 days to 12 days. Well, we have already seen the problems of transportation. How can you send all the goods in air that you were supposed to send on ship? Just because the goods reach in 3 days, can we use air shipment for all our consignment? Not at all. Speed is excellent, but the cost is prohibitive. It is very expensive to send goods by air. So, that is one of the major problems that comes for the logistics manager. Next is the time difference. Well, in a country like India, from whichever part of the country you go, there's a very minor difference of time. And it is very easy. Not that when you are awake, he is asleep. Or while morning to you, it's night for him. Not at all. But there were countries, for example, the erstwhile Soviet Union, which now is known as Russia and split into many countries like Georgia and other CIS countries. Well, Soviet Union had 11 different time zones. That means at one end of Soviet Union, when he calls at the other end of his own country, he should know the time difference. One may be asleep, the other may be, well, still in the office. So, in the same way, we have time difference from Bombay to Boston. Well, the time difference comes roughly around 9.5 hours. So, there's a possibility when they are awake, you're fast asleep. In the same way, from Bombay to United Kingdom, London, it's around 4.5 hours time difference. It's 1.5 hours time difference from Bombay to UAE, that is Dubai. So, a 1.5 hours time difference may not be that a problem, but when we talk about 9.5 hours or 4.5 hours, the logistics manager need to gear up to reach the information or maybe seek approvals given the time constraints also he has. Next is differences in logistics system. Well, India is bestowed with a very good rail infrastructure. We are one of the largest railway networks. So we'll always look at other countries in a very similar fashion. That is not true. There are many countries where there is no rail network available. Whereas the goods that are sent should be on a ship. How come that is possible? Yes, there are a lot of rivers flowing across the cities, and the small ships or steamships are one of the best mode of cargo transport in that country. Now, countries like Indonesia, which is an archipelago, which has got so many tiny islands, you need ship even to transport your own passenger car vehicle. We will look at the number of types of various types of ships available, and one of them we call it as Ro-Ro. And these are nothing but carrying cars, your motorcycles, just because you need to go to your office in a ship. A vessel, rather. So, there are differences in logistics system that needs to be understood. In some places, going to the interiors requires even a horse, because even bicycles cannot go there. There are no roads available. How do we know this? So, a logistics manager must be aware that there might be such possible hindrances or constraints that is going to really curtail the efficiency of providing the goods to the customer at the right time. Compatibility of logistics system is also equally essential. Do you have proper facilities of transportation, stations, warehouses? Well, there may be no possible warehouse available for many long distances, and goods need to be kept in a truck for a longer period of time. Well, we always know transportation is also a storage place. But how long would you like to store goods that are very sensitive to temperature? In such cases, compatibility of logistics systems are very essential. There are differences in legal systems in each of this country. How do you treat a typical problem if fees is not paid? In many countries, every fees needs to be paid but receipts are not given. Well, that's the way the country functions. So, and finally, the number of intermediaries involved. Logistics manager need to be very much clear with how systems of logistics work in a country in which their customers are doing business with. Because they may not be able to do contractual agreements the way they do in their own local businesses in domestic markets. So, these are the possible issues that can be faced by the logistics manager. Now, lack of familiarity is one of the common cause of international environment, leads to uncertainty in decision making process. This is the obvious outcome, and unlike domestic firms, the logistics manager at an international level or when he is in international business depends on purely educated guesses. That means he cannot even adopt thumb rules the way he does it in domestic markets. Well, he can do it because he has very much good information flow and knowledge about the trends. But he doesn't even have access to that, and he has to just take an educated guess to determine the steps that is required to reach the level of service expected by the customer. Variation in locale means variations in legal environment. Infrastructural variations are always the obvious. Mistakes in evaluation of transportation is going to be very, very costly. Yes, sometimes you don't get trucks for days together. That means when one truck leaves a particular point and goes to the interiors, it takes 2 to 3 times for maintenance, repairs, and filling up the gasoline and then returning. So, frequency of transportation is also very, very important for understanding. The availability of different facilities always differ. When we say it's always differ, a country can be very efficient also, which the logistics manager may be even not aware of. So he may take a very calculated, a very slow and a tardy process reaching the goods to the customer. It may not be true. However, the other case, the other side of it is also very, very dangerous, where there is no availability of facilities and logistics manager presumes that the goods will reach based on certain educated guess. New intermediaries charge separately for the services. That means everything cannot be factored in the unit price when it is sold to the customer. Suddenly we get different services for which payment has to be made separately. A single entity will not collect all the payment for the services and provide the service. This is not true in many countries. We contact an export management company or an export trading company or even for that matter a freight forwarder. They will be very clear and specific about what services they provide for what cost and what are the additional services that the customer needs to avail independently, separately. Well, this information is very crucial. In an international market, in a foreign land, this may not be very clear. Differences in distance, currency and transportation emerge because a corporation is active in more than one country. Yes. When a company is shipping to multiple countries, each country's behavior is very different. Their logistics systems are different. The relationship, the exchange rates between the country and the dollar value is also differs. That means pricing has to be done very separately, very cautiously and carefully. So, freight forwarders, customs agents, custom brokers, bank, financial intermediaries act as all intermediaries. That means even banks act as financial intermediaries. So, these are different players in international logistics. We have already studied the role of freight forwarders and brokers and agents or custom house agents and carrying and forwarding agents. Now we'll be looking into, now we understand the international modes of transportation. Well, it doesn't differ from what we studied in transportation, but the dimension through which we'll be studying this will be very different. So let's see. We have post parcel, that is one of the mode of transportation. Next is the land route, which includes road and rail. Third is the air route, and we also have something known as multimodal transport operator, which is known as MMTO. We'll be discussing this briefly to understand what is this. And lastly, one of the biggest mode of transport in international logistics throughout the world, used by several businesses across different countries because of various reasons, is sea route. Now, what we studied before versus in this session, what does it differ? In international modes of transport, these are different modes which has to enter a country. So we need to know what is the entry point into that country known as. And that is what is the subject of our study. So let's go ahead to understand the point of entry. From the previous slide, modes of transportation for a post and parcel, the point of entry, well, in India, it is known as foreign post office. Next is the land route, and the point of entry is land customs station. Again, this is known in India. In the air route, the point of entry is air customs port. In India, we call it air cargo. The multimodal transport operator in India and across the world, we call it ICD and CFS, which is Inland Container Depot and Container Freight Station. I hope you recall a couple of slides before. I had mentioned that a goods can reach to a city by ship. And I said we will discuss this very shortly. And now we're going to discuss this through MMTO. And lastly, we have sea route, and of course we call it seaport or sea customs port. So we'll take one by one to understand what is a post parcel. Well, before that, we'll give an industry overview about this parcel business. Well, we call it as a courier, express and parcel industry in India, which is known as CEP. CEP constitutes collection of services which involves delivery of goods and products through land, air, water across varying locations. That means when you receive a courier to your home, that goods would have passed through any one of these routes to reach you. Now comes the question, how does a parcel differ from a usual business consignment? So for that, it is defined as the packages delivered by CEP are classified as CEP because they are non-palletized. Normally, we call it is enveloped. All are not enveloped, some come in boxes also, but it is not palletized. There are no pallets for it. It's not a mighty carton because it normally weigh around 100 pounds collectively, not more than that. Those things get classified into courier, express and parcel sector. These services are commonly used in B2B, B2C and C2C, customer to customer. Well, B2B is a very big chunk and followed by B2C, which is increasing exponentially because of e-commerce, and C2C model at both domestic as well as international. The market in India of CEP is growing at 10%. It's a very, very healthy rate. and a lot of entrepreneurs are entering this industry offering varying services. Well, the growth is primarily driven by e-commerce, and in India, the entire courier, express and parcel market, 70% businesses flow from domestic sales. That is, you pick up at a location in India and provide the service within India, maybe within the state or the city or some other state. So the rest of it is international. Well, again, B2B, B2C, C2C. The major players are very well-known name. The first one I write is Indian Postal Services. Yes, Government of India, Post Office that we normally call. Next is FedEx, DHL, E-Cart Logistics, Blue Dart, all are well-known names. Amazon Transportation Service. This player is growing exponentially with a very good amount of revenue they are earning. What is the point of entry of these? These is known as foreign post office. A foreign post office are for the purpose of clearance of imported and exported goods both. That means whenever you want to send goods abroad, or whenever you receive a good from a foreign country, B2B, whenever you means a company, then it must have proper clearance procedures. Well, you may always ask, why would a B2B company use a parcel? Well, there are letters, there are, letter of credits that can be sent by envelopes, and these envelopes don't require any inspections because these are letters. These are just pure couriers, but parcels. Well, in B2B, samples are very big businesses. For example, let's say you are in the business of fabric manufacturing and you want to send some goods to your customer abroad. Your customer abroad says, he calls you up and says, let me see what are you manufacturing. So the best way is to cut some pieces of the fabric, roll it into a hanger, a plastic or a cardboard hanger, put it in a big envelope, wrap it, and then send it by parcel. This may take around 25 or sometimes even 50 to 60 kilos, the samples. And the customer may like the samples and prefer to place an order. Another kind of sampling is when after we keep the goods ready for shipment, we may require approval from the customer. And the customer says, please send me a sample of what you have manufactured. At that time, again, samples. So sample portion of a B2B parcel business is very, very huge. So that is where we call inspections are must. The facilities provided by the postal department at its foreign post office and sub-branches. There are many sub-branches in India and also main branches, foreign post office like Mumbai, Chennai, etc. and Bangalore. Well, customs setting up their own wing in the FPO to clear goods. Well, because previously sending samples from India was taking a long time. However, the government has ensured that at major locations, customs themselves set up their own small location where goods need not be sent for further inspection to another location for their inspection, but it is done within the post office boundaries or location. So there are two kinds of goods that is flowing through sea, courier and express and parcel, CEP. One is personal imports and exports. Personal include imported for personal use and not connected with any business. That means the invoices doesn't have any commercial value. Well, it doesn't include manufacturing or agricultural purchases, etc. The commercial imports includes all goods that doesn't fall under personal. So it has to be very carefully filled, the form, before the goods are sent outside the country, whether it is for personal or commercial purpose. Of course, much of the goods in international level, like samples for industrial use, when it is sent, the companies declare that these goods are for no commercial value. Definitely, these are only samples. This is a kind of an advertising or a marketing activity, and no duty should be charged for these things. So, some goods are restricted or prohibited under Foreign Trade Act, like unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, arms, ammunitions, e-cigarettes, etc. So one needs to be very careful before you send a parcel to a customer or receive it from a foreign supplier. Next part of the mode of shipment we go is the land. Well, here we look at road transport, and in India we call land customs station. So let's understand what is land customs station. It is a station that is established by ministerial regulations on an approved route for the collection of custom duties on the goods. Well, land customs station as per the Custom Act are designated areas, and in these areas logistics activities like unloading and loading and clearing the imported goods are carried out. And as we know, this is very crucial for us to understand because India shares almost 15,000 kilometers of land border with not just one but 7 different countries. I hope you would have realized how many different countries are there, like Bangladesh and Pakistan, Myanmar, all these different places. So, Land Port Authority of India, under which land customs station are managed, was established in 2012 for operating and managing the point of entry. The point of entry here we call it as ICP, which is known as Integrated Check Post along the borders of India. This is to monitor the movement of goods. What sort of goods? Because as we know, we had a lot of problem with some neighboring countries because a lot of goods were sent illegally through porous borders of India. Well, how to define what is illegal? Now came the real issue. With ICPs, if the goods that comes from a foreign country doesn't pass through ICP, the customs and the relevant authorities are very quick to act upon and catch hold of some mischievous elements. So, the Land Port Authority of India provides a lot of facility at the ICPs for movement of cargo and as well as passengers who want to travel by road. So the point of entry, as I said, is ICP. It consists of both the entry and the exit points for cross-border movement of goods, vehicles and persons. We have in India roughly 9 ICPs at various areas across our borders that contributes to export and import trade, totaling to roughly $12 billion in 2020 and 21. This is not a very high figure compared to sea shipment, but what is encouraging is this amount or the trade value is increasing. In an ICP, various officials from multiple agencies, for example, I spoke about quality of the product inspection should be done at the border. If it is not available, then it's a very poor logistics, or managing international logistics becomes very problematic. So here we also have food inspection authorities, goods inspection authorities. Certain chemicals that enter the country needs to be inspected before it is passed by the customs. It needs to be certified. So, of course, the buyer or the supplier pay for the charges. But however, we require certain agency located at these places so that inspection is carried out very quickly. India shares the highest number of ICPs with Bangladesh, then Nepal, followed by Pakistan and then Burma or Myanmar. So normally an ICP has what? ICP are very well equipped today. If you can have a look at a picture through Google, many ICPs have got warehouses, they have cold storage, they have cargo complexes, they have weighbridge to understand the total tonnage being sent inside by the road, cargo scanners, banks for transactions, inspection areas, export and import warehouse, including currency exchange counters, of course, because even persons travel, so they require currency to be exchanged to the country they are traveling. Clearing agents, freight forwarders are all available there. So, statutory bodies like customs are a must and they are available at ICPs. Immigration for movement of people and FSSAI, that is a food authority, inspection authority, who basically certify the quality of the food. Facilities for plant and animal, that quarantine, which is passing through the border, across the cross-border trade, are all available at the IC. Next we go is for the air shipment. As we all know, it's the most reliable, least risky, and the least damage transportation. Very high speed, reaches the goods very quickly to the customer, and India has more than 29 international airports through which cargo is lifted and sent to other countries. Airlines develop efficiency through ground facilities. Introducing air freight containers. We'll talk about what is air freight containers very shortly when we are talking about different kinds of shipment. And marketing a wider variety of other services. The total air freight volume is quite negligible compared to the sea. It is roughly around 3.3 million metric ton, not more. International cargo contributes to 60%. That means only 40% is domestic cargo. So international cargo is a very promising sector. The Indian air cargo is estimated to be a very, very negligible 0.8% of global air cargo. That means there are many countries. You should know this. The point is especially to highlight you, to give you an insight that in many countries, air is the most preferred mode of shipment. Well, the mode of transportation, entry point, we'll be studying shortly. There are several benefits of air cargo. One is speed and convenience. And as airlines are dedicated to air cargo transport, there are a number of commercial passenger airlines also provide cargo services. Normally, these passenger airlines provide cargo services to air cargo companies. That's how it is. As aircrafts have limited cargo capacity, bulky goods cannot be sent. There are certain limitations also with air cargo. And we always know that because of the noisy levels of an aircraft, either taking off or landing, much of the airports are located at outskirts of the city. Typically, if you see cities like Bangalore, we call it Bangalore International Airport or Devanahalli International Airport, it is located very further away. However, because of residential areas are developing very close to that airport, we may not know the difference of what is the meaning of outskirts of the city. So, usually airports are located outside, so road transport needs to be arranged. That increases the cost. Bad weather, the aircraft may not take off and there will be certain delays. Cargo particularly well suited are those that are perishable, those that require urgent attention like medical supplies, and very high value and low weightage like diamonds, livestock, newspaper, fruits, flowers, vegetables needs to be imported. Then air cargo is preferred. But air cargo units that we are talking about, containerization, when it's on a pallet or containerized, we call it unit load devices, ULDs. A picture of a ULD is put in the notes part of the content that is provided to you. You may all please look into that. ULDs are playing a very important role in loading and discharging of an aircraft. So the point of entry is the air cargo complex. We call it ACC in India, and there are certain custom procedures. They are listed down here. ACC is a place where cargo is aggregated or segregated and export and import of cargo takes place. Next, faster clearance of cargo. Importers or their agents fill the bill of entry, and in case of any cargo requires examination, the goods are examined in the presence of the importers or their representatives or a representative of Airport Authority of India. And after due verification of the goods, it is released to the importer or his representative or a freight forwarder. So several cargo that requires immediate attention like plants or certain transfusion, medical attention like transfusion or certain transplant that is required to a medically ill patient, such kind of products, such kind of issues when it is involved, life-saving drugs, radioactive materials, these require immediate attention, storage and disposal, and is permitted to be cleared very quickly. So, with this, we complete or conclude the first part of this syllabus. We will commence with the next part, which is purely dealing with the shipment types. Thank you.